Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to my Impress Your Date series. This is baby back ravioli. This recipe answers the question of what to do with a few leftover baby back ribs. Your date will surely be impressed by the repurposed ribs, scratch-made sauce, and ravioli made from scratch. Warning, the sauce can taste a little bitter when you taste it on its own, but it pairs great with the ravioli. So let's start cooking. All right, so the first step in making our baby back ravioli is to add some pan drippings. We just want to moisten this meat. And by the way, it's chopped so it's coarse, but it's not minced, okay? And I added as much of the pan drippings that I had, and I don't really have enough to moisten it. So I'm going to add another sauce. Now you can use really any sauce that you like. I'm using my Okonomiyaki sauce. There's a separate lesson on that. And we want just enough to moisten the meat, okay? Now, you could use a barbecue sauce that you like. Don't use too much though. We just want to moisten the meat. We're not trying to add a lot of flavor. We're adding a little flavor obviously, but we're mostly just moistening it a little bit. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Okay. All right, now we're going to chill this in the fridge until we're ready to make the ravioli. Cover it up and chill it. Now the next thing we're going to do is bring our water to boil for cooking the ravioli. Now I'm not using a pasta pot, I'm using a wide, shallow pan. And the reason that I do that is that when you cook the ravioli, you want them to cook gently and you want to be able to get them out easily. And it's a lot easier to do that in a shallow, wide pan. This pan's about, what, 3 inches deep. It's filled up to the rivets with water, salted, and we want to bring that to a boil. Now, if it starts boiling vigorously while you're doing the other stuff, just turn it down for a little while. You can always put the heat back up, but we want to get started on that. And also, if it starts to boil out, we can always add more water to it. Now we want to make our sauce, so we're going to add the red wine to the saucepan, along with the chicken stock and the mushroom stock, sprig of rosemary, about 1 teaspoon of red miso. And you know, I'm not using an official teaspoon measuring teaspoon here. I'm just using regular old teaspoon and putting in about one teaspoon of red miso, okay? And then we want to add the bones. Now remember, we used the meat from 3 bones worth of a rack of baby back ribs. So I'm using those 3 bones in this sauce. Now we're going to turn on the heat to a little over medium. I'm going to bring that to a boil. Then I'm going to turn it down and let it reduce for a while. All right, so our sauce has come to a boil. We're going to reduce the heat a bit, but I want to reduce the volume of this sauce. So I don't want it to be at like a rolling boil, but I still want it to be at kind of a gentle boil. And we're going to let this reduce. Now you've got about 1.5 cups of liquid in here. You have about a half a cup of red wine, about a half cup of chicken stock, and about a half a cup of mushroom stock. I want to reduce this to about 1/4 cup. Okay, so we're reducing it quite a bit. Now I'm going to start making the ravioli while this is reducing, and we'll come back to this after it's reduced sufficiently. Okay, so here's the pasta that I made about an hour ago, and it's been resting in this damp cloth for about an hour actually. Now it's sticky because it's been wrapped in the damp cloth. So what we want to do is coat it with a little bit of flour. Now making the pasta was from lesson 55, which was my pasta master recipe, and there's also a master recipe on making ravioli. We're making ravioli tonight the same way you would make it in the master recipe. Okay, and we want to put some flour out on our counter. Get our wet towel out of the way. Put some flour out on the counter, and we want to start rolling the pasta through the pasta machine, starting with number 1 you want to get the pasta to be thin enough so it can go through the rollers, which is about a quarter of an inch thick. And then just roll it through on number 1 setting. Okay, then change to the number 2 setting. Roll it through again. Change to the number 3 setting. Roll it through again. Now, at this point, the pasta is starting to get to an unwieldy length, so I usually cut it in half with a knife or a pastry knife. Then we're going to change to setting number 4 and roll it through again. We want to keep it dusted with flour on the counter here. If you start to get to the point where you don't have any flour on the counter, put some more flour on the counter. Okay, that's number 4. Now we're going to change it to setting number 5. Now, after setting number 5, pasta makers differ. Actually, they differ anyway, because this one goes up to number 9, for example, and my other pasta maker only goes up to number 7, which means that on the one that goes up to 9, all of the settings make it thinner than the one than on the pasta maker that goes up to 7. Now, so you're going to have to kind of judge depending on your pasta maker. If you think this is getting too thin to be able to make ravioli out of, you think it's going to split too easily when you start to fill it, well, then stop rolling it. I use that word STOP, which causes the camera to turn off. So if you think the pasta is going to get too thin, cease rolling it and stop at whatever number you think is the highest number you can go to. I am stopping at number 7. And you can see that I have pretty long sheets of pasta here. I may actually have more pasta than I have filling. All right, now, there we go, put out the sheets. Now, I happen to be at 7,000 feet in very low humidity, so this pasta may dry very quickly. I may have to moisten it again a little bit later. Now we're going to take the filling and we're going to start to place the filling on the pasta. How much? It depends upon the size of your pasta cutter, okay? Now I'm using a pasta cutter that's about this big. It's about 3 inches across. So we can put a mound of filling there that will fit easily inside of that cutter. All right, now we're going to just place these about 2 inches apart on the pasta. Now you can actually place them a little bit closer once you get experience, but to start I would place them about 2 inches apart and make the mounds all about the same size. Try to keep them bunched together without any stray pieces. Now I have some pasta down the end here which you can't see on the camera, and I don't want to adjust the camera right now. So I'm going to put some more filling down there and use up that part of the pasta. Also put some down this end. Now I have just a tiny amount of filling left, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit to some of these mounds. Okay, now I'm going to brush both sheets of pasta. Now the one that I'm brushing is only partly on camera, but I'm brushing it lightly with water, okay? Now I don't want to soak it. So you want to dip your brush into the water just a little bit and brush. Now you have to do this fairly quickly. Now I'm brushing the piece of pasta that has the mounds of filling on it, and I'm going to brush around each one of these mounds. Now it's important to do this fairly quickly because the pasta dries out. It's important to do this fairly quickly because the pasta can dry. It's also, if you are in a low humidity situation like I am, it's even more important that you do it fairly quickly. And try not to mess up your mounds while you're doing it. I find that I can actually help to push the mounds together a little bit by using my brush. Okay. Oops. Although that one I didn't. Okay, now we want to take our other sheet of pasta and lift it carefully onto the first sheet. Now, the pasta is fairly pliable, so you can move it around to some extent. You can stretch it a little bit so you can get the mounds covered, but try not to fold your pasta over onto itself. Then what you want to do is press your fingers gently around each mound. Pressing the top part of the top piece of pasta onto the bottom piece of pasta. They should stick together easily if they're moist. If they are floured, they won't stick together. While you're doing this, you can also press your mounds together a little bit. Get your filling centered in the little hill that you're making in this pasta. Okay, now we want to take our pasta cutter and start cutting the pasta. So you just place it down over the mound. Try not to place it, if there's any stray filling that's not in the, if there's any stray filling that is not in the middle of the mound, try not to bring your cutter down on top of those stray pieces. All right, now we're going to cut these pieces, carefully lift them off, and put them onto the sheet pan, which we have here that has been dusted with cornmeal. You could also dust it with flour, but I'm using cornmeal. We're just going to cut each one of these and put them on the tray. Now if you get one where the top and the bottom are not completely closed, just use your fingers and squeeze it closed. All right, so here they are. I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, which is more than enough for dinner for two. And you'll see that I have a lot more pasta here. Now, if I had any more filling, I would re-roll this, roll it out again, and use it to make more ravioli. But because I don't have any more filling, I can wrap this in a damp towel and then use this the next day. It's not going to keep any longer than that. But the ingredients for making pasta are cheap, so if you have to throw it away, it's not a huge loss. Okay, that's our ravioli. We're going to hold these aside until we're ready to cook them. All right, it looks like our sauce is reduced down to about 1/4 cup. We're going to remove the bones, and we're going to remove the rosemary and reduce the heat. You can see there's only about 1/4 cup left in there. Reduce the heat to low. Now we're going to swirl in 2 tablespoons of cold butter, okay? And everything's better with butter, okay? So we're just going to swirl them around. You can also take your pan, you can swirl it around like this.
You want it to be on low heat or even with the heat off. I have it on low heat because I want to keep the sauce warm after I'm finished swirling in the butter. Okay, now let's taste it. Now remember, we didn't add any salt earlier because we added miso, and miso has a lot of salt. But now's the time to adjust if you think it needs it. I think it needs a little bit more salt, so we're going to add it. And let's taste it again. I think that's good. Don't need any more salt. Now what we want to do is keep this warm until we're ready to plate. All right, it's time to cook the pasta. The water is boiling. I have it on high because when you put the pasta in there, that will drop the temperature some. Now, even though this is impress your date, I'm cooking for one tonight, so I'm going to do 5 of these raviolis. They're only going to need about 2 minutes each, right? Now, it's also possible that some of them could fall apart in there, so it's always good to have an extra or 2 that you can cook. But I think they're going to be fine, so I'm just cooking the number that I need. We're going to let them cook for 2 minutes, take them out, and plate immediately. All right, so here we have a warm bowl. I'm going to add to that some of the sauce. Now, you might notice I'm putting the sauce in first, okay? I think it makes a better presentation that way. Then, I'll add a little more. Then we're going to add the raviolis, which are hot. They just came right out of the boiling water. Now 4 of these is probably enough for one person, but I have here 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 6. I have 6 because I'm hungry. Now we're going to garnish with the peas that were already cooked and kept warm. Then we're going to sprinkle with some grated Parmesan cheese, a little freshly chopped parsley, and grind of black pepper. And there we have it, baby back ravioli. You can see photos of the final dish at my Instagram, which is at Chef's Apprentice Cook Like a Pro. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and have a great day.